And it's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the MultiDimensional MD. My mission is to help bring the intuitive aspects of medicine back to medicine, the intuitive aspects of health back to medicine in practical and tangible ways so that you can access deeper healing and more peace, love, and joy in your everyday lives. So before I get started, just a couple of announcements. I have a tension and trauma release workshop coming up this Sunday, March 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a few slots left, so if you would like to join that, then please take a look at my website, allworldshealth.com, for more information on that. And I'll also be teaching with Edgar Cayce's Association for Research Enlightenment with Corinne Casey in Virginia Beach, the end of March. That'll be March 20th to 24th. I'll be there for a couple days for a life coaching experiential. So go to the Edgar Cayce events page for more information on that. And today, I wanted to talk about how your birth can impact your health. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I am a faculty member of the Osteopathic Cranial Academy. So every year I like to go help and teach the introductory course to cranial osteopathy. It's a 5-day course for physicians, and it is absolutely amazing because you get to see the students learn how to connect with another person's cranial rhythms, the rhythms of their body, their essence of health. And it's just like watching babies be born over and over again because it's just miracles all around. And part of my job is to give a lecture on infants and kids. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I work with every single day. And this is every age. It's not just for babies. So there are ways that your birth impact your health now, or can still be impacting your health now. And so I'm going to go through in a multidimensional way the physical aspects, the mental, emotional aspects, and the spiritual aspects, and just give you some fun stories and examples of how that might be affecting you. So first, the physical stress at birth. There's so much there, and it's the baby and mom are really one unit. So I tell the moms, I tell the parents that if the mom feels something, the baby feels it. If the baby feels something, the mom feels it. So there's no separation. You are really one. And you don't even have to, for moms, you don't have to start thinking like, oh, was that me? Did I give that to my baby, or was that my baby that I'm feeling? Don't even worry about that, like where it started. Just know that you're both influencing each other. So if there is anything that you can do to help yourself, it will also help your baby. So think about it that way. It's much more empowering to know that you can do something than to feel that you can't do something. So if you can recognize things, then you can take steps to help yourself. So to think about what was the mom going through during the birth, whether it's she had some medications or antibiotics, had an epidural, or was the birth a C-section or a natural delivery. So all of those things can affect the mom's state of being, and then also be passed down to the baby. We know from epigenetics, this is what I talked to you about before, about how generational stress and trauma can be passed down through the DNA. So what the mom was experiencing around the time that she's pregnant and then through the birth can get imprinted onto the baby's DNA and affect them later on. But just the intensity of the experience itself can also imprint emotionally onto the baby. So I see this often, and it can be from, say, if the mom was given medications and didn't really know expecting that she was going to be given medications. I've heard moms say that they were given anesthesia suddenly. This doesn't happen commonly, but they didn't know that they were going to be placed under general anesthesia and they were knocked out. And so I see the impact on the baby later on where they felt disconnected from the mom because the mom didn't know what was happening. And then the baby didn't really know what was happening. Even though the babies are so little, they are still like these full beings in a tiny body. So don't underestimate the experience of that. The way the baby is positioned through the birth canal can make a difference. The normal positioning as the baby goes around the pubic bone, usually they take more pressure at the back of the head. But if the baby is face up position, then what is called like back labor, then the baby will tend to take like more pressure to the front of the head. And if they're flipping around, they can get pressure all over. So it's something that I check for everybody, for the babies especially, but for anyone, any age, because you can have remnants of this stress that's like been this physical stress, even that's been impacted into the tissues and put pressure onto various nerves, including the cranial nerves, influence your autonomic nervous system, impact that vagus nerve, which has to do with your stress response. So often I'll see adults still in this state of stress. They'll tell me they don't ever remember a time where they felt relaxed. They don't ever remember a time where they weren't anxious. And so when someone says that, I know that there was something very early on that impacted them. And it very well may have been through the birth and just never having had a chance to exhale after the birth. If there was a prolonged labor, if there was use of like forceps or suction, I mean, imagine if you had a suction on your scalp and then the pull and pressure it would take to drag you by your head to get you out. I'm so glad that we have these things that can save a baby's life, but they can leave an impact as well. And those are things that I address as a cranial osteopath as well. So there's also considering like when the umbilical cord was cut. So nowadays, more and more OBs and midwives, like through the birth, it's starting to become more normal to delay the cord cutting, cord clamping. The World Health Organization actually recommends waiting 1 to 3 minutes after the birth before cutting the cord because that enhances the amount of blood that the infant's getting and can prevent iron deficiency anemia. Cutting it too soon without an emergent need can deprive the baby of oxygen, and especially before they have had a chance to clear their lungs of fluid, it can stress the baby's heart. There's also another study in 2017 at the University of Sydney that found that delaying the clamping of a premature baby's umbilical cord by 60 seconds can dramatically increase its chances of survival. So these are just things to consider. And I know that kind of thing we don't think about later in life, but part of the energetics of delaying that cord clamping or cutting of the umbilical cord is that the mother's messages from their heart are still getting transmitted to the baby during that time. So if you don't have that physical spiral of flow, but also the energetic message being passed, and then sometimes that can impact the connection between the mom and the baby. And you can see this even later in life because when I check in adults, I can often still feel that mother wound where they never felt quite connected, or they're always looking to be more connected to their mom, or always looking for the mom. And in kids, I can see this. So even after infancy, where they can want to stay just so close to their mom. They physically need to be really close to their parent to feel safe and to feel that connection. And it's not just the mom, the connection to the mom, but through the birth process, especially like after going through the pandemic and quarantine times, just seeing the impact of maybe unexpectedly that the dad wasn't able to be at the birth. So that can create a stress on the baby. And I tell parents, like, just talk to your baby about the birth. And these things don't have to be like just because it's stress, it doesn't mean that it has to leave a lasting impact. It's just recognizing these aspects of the birth that can impact you as a baby, as a child, as an adult. So those mental emotional stresses, now we're going into, like, who was present at the birth? Was the dad there? Were they called off suddenly? Sometimes the dad had an accident or just couldn't be there because of pandemic, or there were illnesses and they couldn't get to the hospital. Whatever it was, maybe they were planning for a home birth and sibling couldn't be there and you had to get rushed to the hospital. Whatever the situation, then there can be this feeling of disconnection, especially if something was unexpected, unplanned. So consider that. And if you're a parent and you're wondering that for your child, then what you can do is just to talk to your baby or your child, even just in baby terms and kid-friendly terms, about their birth. And here's what happened. Because if you know what happened, you can gain an understanding of that. And that can be really soothing and consoling. If you don't know what happened, it's like leaves this unknown element. And it can, we tend to worry about things that are unknown. So if we know, we tend to just feel more empowered, because like, oh, that's why I felt stressed. I was wondering why I was feeling stressed and it didn't make sense. But now that it makes sense, it's more satisfying to like both sides of the brain. So you can do that. You can also, I'll often have people do a ceremony surrounding the birth. So a ceremony has a beginning, a middle, an end, like a happy birthday, blowing out the candles. But instead, this will be to honor the birth. And the way you can do that is you could journal, you could talk about it, you could sit in quiet meditation. So you could say a poem at the beginning, a poem after, you could light a candle in the beginning and after, and then just spend a little bit of time. I would recommend about 20 minutes to honor the birth story. This can help you, this can help your baby, this can help the whole family. If this is for, you're an adult and you want to honor your own birth, you can also do that. Maybe you don't know aspects of your birth, but you just want to honor whatever was, whatever happened. Maybe those things weren't tended to, maybe things were like hushed up. You never know what has happened. So to just spend some time to honor that. And if whatever was going on for the family during the birth. So a lot of times there's transition in jobs, there's transitions with finances, there's moves, there's illnesses. So anything that is happening, just picture the whole movie surrounding the birth. Just spend some time to honor that. And sometimes, most of the time, the birth is very emotional. So there's a lot of intense emotions. And depending on how the parents are able to handle those emotions, then are they just mentally, emotionally present in their bodies? Like this can impact also the connection between parents and baby. So just realizing that it is stressful for the baby, it is stressful for the parents. And the more we're able to call it out, that can also help to smooth things out. Because it's, if you're not afraid of being afraid, if you're not feeling sad about being sad, if you can just recognize what is, then just call it out as it is, and that can help to soothe things and smooth things out. And then we go into these spiritual aspects of your birth. So many times there's been some sort of transition near the birth. Say, I've heard so many stories of someone wanting to get pregnant and then they weren't able to get pregnant until somebody in the family passed recently, and then suddenly they're pregnant. So, or maybe there's a rainbow baby, there's a miscarriage, so something happened. And so when these things happen, then where there's the death of a loved one near the time of the birth, it's like one soul is coming in and another is going out. So you can have that that transition, and they can kind of greet each other on the way in and out. And I have so many stories of kids just saying things about relatives that have passed on. This has happened in my family, this has happened in other families. My little niece, she used to talk about my grandmother who had passed before she was born, and she would call her my friend, and she would say, "Oh, my friend is here visiting," and she would say things about my grandmother that were true, like, "Oh, she likes to cook and she likes to do this, and oh, look, she's going to go visit the baby now." So this is my little niece. She was talking when she was about 2 years old, and I've heard that from other families as well. So there's so many ways that the birth can impact you as a baby, as an infant, as a growing up, and then later on. And if you just spend a little bit of time to honor that, then that can help so much. And there's ways that I can help too as a cranial osteopath to just help ease some of that stress and trauma that may still remain from the birth. Because so physically, we'll just review physically, if just being so squeezed, we can get that physical tension out of the tissues. Mentally, emotionally, what was going on around the birth? Was the mom present? I mean, physically, like mentally, emotionally present? Was the dad present? What was going on with the relationship there? What was going on in the rest of the family? Were there any huge stressors present? And you can honor all of that with a simple ceremony. I've seen just even this connection with the mother and the baby from after the birth. There's so much. So if the mom is not present in her body, or the baby's stress not fully present in her body, then see, it's more difficult for the mom and baby to connect. And they just need to be like more physically touching each other to feel connected. So if you help the mom settle into her body with various exercises, treatments, tension trauma release exercises, cranial osteopathic treatment, just simple breathing exercises, ceremony, you have your choice of things to do, and you help the baby settle in the body. And I do that with homeopathic remedies, with cranial osteopathic treatment. Then you have two beings more settled in their body, and see, they're much more able to connect. And so then the mom and baby can feel more secure about each other even when they're at a distance. So if there's like any separation anxiety, this is any age. This can be through childhood, going to school. I've dealt with that in my family, or even as an adult. So what are the insecurities in that parent-child relationship? And how can you switch from this parent-child relationship as an adult to more like this soul-to-soul relationship and honor each other that way? So just some things to consider. This is meant to be more of an overview and not an end-all be-all talk about like how your birth impacts your health, but to just start to open up your perspectives of like, wow, that really impacted my relationship with my parents. And now that I have this understanding of it, maybe I can take steps to help myself. So it's always body, mind, spirit, the physical, the mental, emotional, the spiritual. So take steps in whichever dimension of those feels easiest. Sometimes it feels easier to go to the body. So it could be doing the tension and trauma release exercises. It could be coming in for a cranial osteopathic treatment. Sometimes it feels easier to go through to honor it more mindfully with doing a simple ceremony or doing some journaling. Sometimes it feels like you want to honor it more from the spirit, and this can be maybe communicating with loved ones that have passed before you, or again, a ceremony. And many of these things can integrate as a mind, body, spirit approach. So if you have any questions on this is such a big topic, and I know I mentioned a lot of different things here, but we can talk about it in many different ways. So if you have any questions, just feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear from you, and I will respond to any comment. And if you'd like to follow me further, you can connect with me on Instagram at All Worlds Health, on Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics, on my website, allworldshealth.com. I send out an e-love letter every week on Wednesday. And if you are watching this at a later date and can't come to any of the upcoming workshops, the Tension Trauma Release workshop, we have a virtual one March 5th, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We still have a few slots left. I will be doing those periodically. I'll try to offer a virtual one maybe about once every other month, depending on my schedule. And also just a reminder for the coaching experiential, life coaching experiential with Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment. And Corinne Casey, who is also my co-host for the parenting podcast, Creating Calm. You can find more information about that on my website, as well as the ARE website, edgarcayce.org. So lots of love to all of you. It's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the Multidimensional MD, wishing you the very best. I believe in you, so I hope that you believe in you too. And I'll see you next week on another episode of the Multidimensional MD.